Kate is a mean girl is that she did not even want to meet Meghan for months after Harry said that he was dating somebody and wanted his family to meet her because he was serious about her. A normal sister-in-law would take that with the intention and seriousness that it was and want to, I don't know, meet her future sister-in-law. But Kate had already decided that Meghan was whatever she wanted her to be in her mind, not good enough, or too much of an actress, or possibly too beautiful, or too much of a hard worker. And Kate was already gearing up to not like her. And in Harry's book, Spare, we hear about more details, and it did take him a long time to get them to meet. And then there were just some coldness opportunities from Kate toward Meghan. And Meghan was trying really hard because she wanted to make it work. And that's just not the way that this family works.
So this is William and Kate standing on the high steps of Windsor Church just after Harry and Meghan were getting into the carriage to do the carriage drive through the Windsor village and back up to the castle again. And people say, oh, William and Kate were happy for Harry and Meghan. I'm sorry, look at the photos. Look at their faces. Look at William. He looks so angry that the wedding was a triumph. Because originally, I don't know if you guys know this, Harry questioned William as to where he could get married. And he said about Westminster, and William said no, Ma and Pa did it there, Diana and Charles. And then he said about Westminster Abbey, and he said no, me and Catherine got married there. And Harry thought, well, you're being a bit awkward about this, William, because I'm trying to ask for help and you're not giving me any help. And then he said, oh, well, what about Tetbury? And Harry said, all right. And then he said, well, how many does that seat? And William said 650 people. And he was like, are you mad, William? Really? And that just shows how awkward William was being with Harry at the beginning. I don't want you to have the big blasé wedding. I don't want you to have all the trimmings of it like me and Catherine did. And you can just tell by his face, look, he's so angry that they managed to get Windsor Castle. But can't you just be happy for Harry, William? Why do you have to get so uppity-dupty? I mean, he's got Catherine. Shouldn't he be happy with her? And he's got 3 children, but he doesn't seem happy enough, does he? So this is how you know that the marriage is a sham. Because look at their faces. If they were madly in love, truly madly in love with each other, then Harry and Meghan's wedding day wouldn't have affected them. But it did. They didn't like the attention that they were getting. They were in the limelight. It was all about them. Everyone wanted to know what dress Meghan was wearing. No one was talking about Kate's outfit. They couldn't have cared less. And it just shows that these two are the ones that have the issue around Harry and Meghan. They don't like it that the Sussexes are more popular than the Cambridges were. Well, the Welleses now. But I just thought, cheer up, guys. You had your wedding day and everyone was supportive towards you. So why can't you be supportive towards Harry and Meghan? And it's like double standards. They're like hypocrites. Well, we can have a nice wedding. We want a nice church. But Harry and Meghan aren't allowed in these two. These two don't agree with that. They didn't want the big blasé wedding. This one was being awkward about the bridesmaids' dresses, whether the children should wear tights, moaning at Meghan, saying there should be a party for the page boys and the bridesmaids afterwards, even though she never had a party for her own page boys and bridesmaids, by the way. So again, a bit double standards there, but that's Kate for you. But I just wanted to say this photo just screams jealousy and envy. They hated Harry and Meghan's wedding. The sunshine, the weather, the public. 423,000 people were standing all around the Windsor surroundings 423,000 people from the British public came to see the wedding. Now, these two got 1 million, unfortunately, but remember, they were the future king and queen, so you would expect 1 million back then in 2011, because Harry and Meghan weren't around, because everyone thought, oh, well, these two, they're the modern celebrities, we're going to stick with these two. But then Harry and Meghan came along and they realised how boring these two were, but they still got 423,000, Harry and Meghan, and I think that's really good, accounting for, like, everyone calls them the spares. So I actually thought that was a really good number, but I just think the press should have done an article. The Daily Mail said, cheer up William and Kate, you should be happy for Harry and Meghan on their wedding day. But look at them, and people just turn a blind eye. Well, Meghan was being difficult. She wasn't, it was Kate. Oh, well, Harry was being difficult, he wouldn't take his beard off. He went to the Queen, he told Harry that he had to put her in an uncomfortable position. And I thought, really, William, a beard? So you've got this one moaning about Harry keeping his beard, and then you got this one banging on about the fitting of the bridesmaids' dresses and if they should wear tights or not. And then she moaned about that Meghan didn't give her the right time to go up to the Windsor Castle for the wedding rehearsal the day before. And I just thought they were not being very helpful, and I think this picture just clarifies the whole story. These two wanted to ruin the wedding, they wanted to trash it, they wanted to break Meghan, they wanted her to cancel it. And after witnessing all the vows that Harry and Meghan took, walking out, they did the kiss on the steps, and these two, they look completely oblivious of Harry and Meghan's happiness. It's like they're in their own zone themselves. They didn't even smile. And there's a couple of other pictures if you look them up, but you could just tell these two were not happy about Harry and Meghan's wedding. They hated it. They hated the fact everything went to plan. The whole event went plain sailing. It was absolutely perfect. And these two couldn't stand it. Hence why you've got these faces. But everyone turns a blind eye and the press never discussed it. Strange that.
Squaddies. Look, you didn't even need a magnifying glass to see it. Go back and watch that wedding footage. William and Kate looked like they were sitting through a teeth cleaning the entire time. Zero joy, just ice. Kate was throwing straight up mean girl side-eye from the pews. You know that specific look someone gives when they think they're the standard and somebody new walks into the room stealing the spotlight? That was her whole face. She wasn't celebrating a marriage, she was keeping score. The energy was so cold you could freeze leftovers in that cathedral. Then came the aftermath. When Meghan didn't bow down to the royal status quo, the palace machine went into overdrive. Kate played the victim card, dropped that whole crying over flower girl dresses story to the press, and let the UK tabloids rip Meghan to shreds. Classic high school drama, except played out on a global stage with tax dollars. They didn't like a confident, self-made woman coming into their stale little club and outshining them, so they manufactured a fake narrative and bullied her right out the door. And William, standing right beside her, fully supporting the hit job on his own brother's wife. Regular people recognize this setup in a second. It's the dynamic where the in-laws act fake to your face, whisper behind your back, and make the family home so toxic you have to pack up and move states away just to breathe. That filthy palace was just a shiny wrapper on pure envy. Harry and Meghan did the only smart thing. They saw the venom, grabbed their bags, and left those two sitting in their cold, miserable kingdom all by themselves. Let's cut right to the core question. Was Meghan Sussex ever given a fair shot? Because let's be real, she walked into that palace and the verdict was already signed, sealed, and delivered before she even unpacked her bags. Imagine starting a new job, and before you even find the break room, the office queen bee decides she hates your guts. That was Kate Middleton from day one. Kate took one look at a confident, self-made American woman and panicked. Instead of being a decent sister-in-law, Kate dropped that frosty, mean girl energy, whispered in the right ears, and set the entire system against her. Regular people know this toxic dynamic by heart. If Meghan was warm, Kate's camp called her fake. If she was driven, they called her arrogant. If she defended herself, she was difficult. Kate didn't want a peer, she wanted a subordinate. When Meghan wouldn't bow down, the palace machinery, led by Kate's fake victim routine, went into overdrive to tear her down. It wasn't a transition, it was a rigged audition Meghan was never allowed to pass. And here is where Meghan showed total boss energy. Instead of spending her life begging cold, jealous in-laws for basic respect, she said, keep the outdated rules in the stale palace. She grabbed her husband, protected her kids, and walked out the front door with her head held high. Look at her now, still thriving, still building her own empire, and still living rent-free in their heads. Meghan didn't fail to fit into their world. She realized she was way too big for their tiny little table, so she built her own. So I'll ask you again, Squaddies. When Kate in the palace had already decided who she was before she even spoke, how was she ever supposed to win?
Now, Squaddies, this is where things get really interesting. Because you can't talk about Meghan's experience without talking about the media machine surrounding her. Think about how this works. One newspaper publishes a negative story, then another outlet picks it up. A commentator jumps on television and talks about it. Then another journalist writes about what that commentator said. Then social media gets involved, and suddenly, boom, a story that started with one person's claim is being discussed like it's an established fact. And that's where I think regular people need to stop and say, wait a minute, who actually proved this? Because repetition doesn't magically turn an allegation into truth. If 10 people repeat the same story, it's still the same story. That's basic common sense. Imagine you make one mistake at work. One. Your coworker mentions it, then another coworker hears about it, then somebody tells the manager, then there's a group chat, then somebody makes a joke about it at lunch, and 3 years later, somebody is still saying, remember when you messed that up? You'd be like, mate, I made one mistake, let it go. But that's the kind of environment Meghan has often been placed in. A single incident can become a headline, the headline becomes commentary, the commentary becomes another headline, and suddenly the original event is almost irrelevant. What's left is the story about the story. And this is where journalism has to be careful, because there's a massive difference between reporting something and constantly feeding it. If there's a genuine public interest story, investigate it, ask questions, challenge Meghan, challenge Harry, fine, that's journalism. But if the same negative narrative keeps getting recycled simply because it generates attention, then we have to ask, are we informing people or are we feeding an obsession? And here's the funny part. The people who constantly say Meghan is irrelevant are often the same people spending hours discussing her. If she doesn't matter, why are you still talking about her? Why analyze her clothes? Why analyze her facial expressions? Why dissect an Instagram post? Why turn every appearance into a debate? You can't spend years watching somebody and then complain that they're getting too much attention. That's like standing outside somebody's house every morning shouting, why won't this person leave me alone? Mate, you're the one standing outside. And that's why I think the bigger issue isn't whether Meghan should ever be criticised. The question is whether she has been given the same basic fairness everyone else deserves. Because once journalists decide on a particular character for somebody, everything can start being filtered through that lens. If Meghan is confident, she's arrogant. If she's quiet, she's calculating. If she succeeds, there's a catch. If something goes wrong, it's proof. How does somebody win that game? They don't, because the rules were written before they even walked onto the pitch. And that's the part that should concern everybody, not just Meghan supporters. Because today it's Meghan, tomorrow it could be somebody else. When media coverage becomes a constant cycle of outrage, speculation and repetition, ordinary people deserve better. We deserve facts, we deserve context, and we deserve journalists who are willing to say, we don't actually know. That's a powerful sentence, because sometimes we don't know what somebody was thinking. We don't know their private conversations, we don't know their motives, and we certainly shouldn't pretend we do just because it makes a better headline. So Squaddies, that's the question I want to leave you with. Was the media simply reporting the Meghan story, or did years of repeated coverage help create the very narrative they were reporting? Because if you keep telling people somebody is the villain, eventually some people will stop asking whether the story was ever fair in the first place. Squaddies, let's stop pretending and call a spade a spade. William and Kate were absolute hater-in-chiefs from day one. They were preying on Harry and Meghan's downfall. Deep down, they wanted that 2018 wedding to be a total train wreck. They wanted boring, awkward and forgettable. Instead, it was a straight-up global blockbuster. The choir knocked it out of the park, the star power was off the charts, and Harry and Meghan looked like $1,000,000. The entire world fell in love with them overnight, and the press couldn't write about anything else. That absolute triumph ate Will and Kate alive. You know that petty sibling envy when the younger brother pulls up in a cooler car and suddenly nobody cares about your beige sedan? That was William. He spent his whole life being groomed for the crown, thinking he's the main character. Then Harry drops in with Meghan, a gorgeous, charismatic, self-made superstar, and suddenly the cameras aren't even pointing at the future king. And Kate? Furious. She thought she had the royal fashion icon title locked down forever. Then Meghan steps out looking effortless, breaking the internet without even trying. Kate was sitting there doing the math, realizing her stale routine wasn't cutting it anymore. Instead of being happy for family, Will and Kate got green-eyed. They couldn't handle getting outshined, so they ran to their media buddies to leak bad press, stir up hate, and try to take the shine off the real stars. It's bitter, petty, small-town behavior disguised in designer suits. Harry and Meghan were too bright, too loved, and too global for those two to handle. Plain and simple. Walking away from that golden cage was the single best play Harry and Meghan ever made, and every day since proves it. Look at the difference in momentum. While the palace is out here relying on centuries-old traditions and stale PR handouts to stay relevant, Harry and Meghan are actually out in the real world building something that belongs entirely to them. Meghan is running her own game. She's launching her own lifestyle vision as ever, executive producing global Netflix shows, investing in women-led enterprises, and calling the shots as her own boss. She isn't asking permission from a courtier to post a photo or start a business. She just executes. Harry is focused on real impact. Between driving the Invictus Games forward, bringing historic adaptive sports events to a global stage, and backing big-picture philanthropy, his work actually changes lives on the ground, instead of just cutting ribbons. They own their independence. They aren't tied to royal protocol, leaking tabs, or playing second fiddle to anyone's ego. They swapped a cold, rigid system that tried to dim their light for total freedom and actual ownership over their lives. That filthy palace kept trying to keep them in an audition they were never meant to win, but now they own the whole production. They didn't just escape the noise, they outgrew it. Total boss move. Thank you all for watching. I'm your host Miles, and remember, if Kate's mean energy towards Meghan had a battery meter, that thing would need a charger. Love you all, stay blessed, and I'll catch you in the next one.